good news so far today. Ed Werder's report that Jerry Jones enamored with Deion Sanders, and Deion would be willing to take the job if he was offered. Okay, so you have that. We were just talking about Dak. Cliff Aubrey says his running is no longer pro level. His passing will be heavily impacted. He'll no longer be able to drive the football with his legs.
Wait.
Yeah, the ball will lose energy at the end of his passes, leading to picks or underthrows. I had no idea this avulsion fracture had this kind of potential, but that's the second text from somebody who kind of knows what they're talking about with the kinetic energy that's flowing from the ground up and how that, really wicked detachment from ligament from bone, that's the hamstring area, right? Might impact his athleticism moving forward. That would be just horrible luck, the games after you give the deal. But you kind of did it to yourself, giving him the original second contract after the compound fracture of his leg. So hopefully that's not true. If that is true, then you absolutely should be looking at moving on from him before the accelerator in his contract, the 5th day of the league year, shouldn't you, Chief?
Well, yes, you should, but that would take some foresight and not waiting to the last minute on things. Actually putting somewhat of a plan together.
Yeah.
And I don't see them doing that.
And I guess because the whole thing is injury guaranteed, I don't know how that would work. If you move on from him saying, well, that injury happened, which makes us look at the contract differently, and that's why we're releasing you, even if it's a successful surgery and he's on the comeback trail. I don't know how all of that works, but I know the Cowboys are really up against it, and I don't know. Am I too pessimistic thinking this might be the worst state that Cowboys football has been in since Brian Broaddus worked for him?
Yes. No, I don't think it's not too pessimistic. It's not too pessimistic.
Man,
because
you're not wrong.
it's certainly in the cards that these injuries have piled up in a way that is going to prevent Dak from being anywhere close to the height of his powers. And you've just paid him, you've just locked him up with a ridiculous amount of money.
Right, which, that handicaps you. Certainly that's what they'll tell you from being able to do and improve the team and put more talent around him. It feels a lot like the 8-8 purgatory years from like 10 to 12, 11 to 13, really as they tried to build up that offensive line. That's when you had Tyron Smith drafted. You had Travis Frederick drafted. Then in 14, you had Zach Martin. You had a healthy Tony Romo, and then things took off from there. But it does seem like, I don't know that they'll be so bad to where it's 5-11. But if they don't have a competent quarterback, then it easily could get that bad. The reason they stayed afloat those 3 years was because Romo was outstanding.
Yeah, still couldn't make the playoffs, but at least they were an 8-8 team. I don't know. Maybe that's what they're hoping that they can continue to do these couple of years while they're rebuilding. But if Dak's not healthy enough to run or push the ball downfield, and you have a bad offensive line with no running back, that might be really tough sledding. 214 says, I can't trust anything Ed Werder says in regards to what Deion is thinking.
I disagree on that.
Same.
I just, listen, there's a lot of things that you don't have to like any of us. That's fine. There are connections that Ed Werder has. He did cover Deion Sanders when he was here during those Super Bowl runs. Ed Werder also has ties to Colorado. That's
does he?
Home state. So, he's got ties. He knows people in the state. He knows people there that are involved with the universities. He's very, very well respected up there. Again, you don't have to like him, but this one I would absolutely trust that he's not going to lead you down the wrong path here.
At one time, Jerry was one of the most unpredictable owners in the NFL. Has he refound that, or is he insisting upon, doing something like that to fuse some energy back into the organization? That would be very interesting. I was racking my brain, I think obviously Todd Archer's way up there and Machota's way up there, but I just think Ed Werder might still be the best reporter as far as having a beat on things.
Well, it's seniority, with the number of years, and he could stretch all the way back to
his network is just so vast.
It is vast, and he could stretch all the way back to like with me, like the last time that Jerry had success, he was covering this team 30 years ago. Matter of fact, Ed Werder and Rick Gosselin were the two guys that Jerry grabbed to say, hey, come here, I got a scoop for you. And so, Jerry's the one that was grabbing Ed Werder and telling him, hey, this is what's going down with Jimmy and blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, it's like I said, I there's a lot of things that you probably say, I don't know about that, Ed. And then there's times where these are the ones where I go, okay, he's not reporting this just because he's throwing it up against the wall. Like he actually has something here.
Yeah, and this isn't a tie into Deion, but I mean, Brian, when we were in post game, last game of the season, we looked over. This was probably 30 minutes or so after McCarthy had been done talking. He came back out and he had a 10-minute one-on-one with Ed Werder.
Yeah.
He didn't talk to anybody else that way. Like Ed's very, very well respected. Coaches and players respect him. He's able to get a lot of access other people aren't able to get.
He's a crusty guy. He doesn't get along with everybody. You know, the older you get, the more mad you get. And so I can understand, why, he comes off that way. But you get like frustrated, like, hey, I've got this thing wired, and now you're getting questioned about it. But I would trust him on this one. I would trust him.
The older you get, the madder you get. That's science, isn't it?
I'll tell you a story.
Everybody will agree to that, right? 877-881-1053.
Science rules.
Can I tell you a real quick Ed Werder story? Just real quick, if I could. We're sitting in the draft room, and we're watching the TV, and Ed's up there like it's day 2, and Ed is going through every single thing that we're going to do that day. I mean, he literally is spelling it out as we're sitting there watching it in the draft room. And Steven Jerry looks around the room and goes, how the hell did he get all that? And Steven goes, well, you gave it to him. And Jerry's like, oh, okay, yeah, okay. Started laughing, like literally like.
That's right.
Yeah, it's like, like Jerry's like, how did he get all that? And Steven goes, well, you gave it to him. So that, Ed Werder is, like I say, he's had a lot of days in the sun.
Okay, how about this? No, hey, just a question. Why is it national media gets all the scoops on what's going on in the Cowboys when the home of the Cowboys station has Bobby and Brian, Cowboys insiders?
Yeah, and that's I tell you what, though, it's when it depending on there's certain people like, okay, let's just be real honest since he's now gone. Mike McCarthy. Tom Pelissero went and did a story about Mike McCarthy, right? Didn't he go to the farmhouse and this whole big thing? Well, all of a sudden you're in a situation where Tom Pelissero helps Mike McCarthy get a job. So, Jay Glazer, really good friends with Mike McCarthy. Matter of fact, Jay Glazer was the one that steered Stephen Jones to Mike McCarthy.
Good friends with Steve too.
Good friends with Steve too.
Yeah.
So you develop some of these friendships for going out and then, and like, listen, I'll take care of you here. I'm going to put this out there, like, somebody makes a report, like a Jay Glazer makes a report about somebody. I generally look at it as he's trying to help somebody get to where they need to be. Tom Pelissero, very fine reporter. But you have relationships with people, and then sometimes, like I say, it's our job. Those guys tend to be a little bit more friendly, and as opposed to me, Bobby went on a rant why he hated Mike McCarthy. I went on a 3-year rant why I didn't want and I made it personal with Jason Garrett. I'll admit that. I made it personal. I'm hated in that building over there with a lot of people just because of that. So, yeah, you could be really nice and cordial and friendly and let me help you. Or you could be, hey, I'm going to be honest about this. I'm going to say the good with the bad, and that's how we're going to cover this team. So, yeah, national media tend to get more of those scoops because they're not on the boots on ground here every single day having to battle this thing.
Yeah.
They're battling it from Bristol, Connecticut. They're battling it from New York City. They're battling it from L.A.
Yeah.
We're here battling it. And these people see us every day, and they're not too happy with us a lot of these times.
Yeah, that's great insight to that whole dynamic. I feel like a lot of the major players across the world of sport, whether it's a player, coach, GM, whatever, owner, they want to see it on SportsCenter or NFL Network. They want the whole nation to see this.
Yeah.
They want it to drop an absolute bomb. And if you let it go locally, that it will eventually get out there. But you're taking care of the guys who have the biggest potential to spread good news about you. There was a
time, and here's another gentleman that's no longer with the Cowboys, Rich Dalrymple. Rich is the PR director. Rich wasn't always interested in helping local guy, but Rich was interested in helping Peter King, helping national, when national media guy came into the building, interested in helping them, holding their hand, walking them through. giving a little insight.
Yeah, and then on top of that, you have the relationships with the networks that are putting the games on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're helping this network, ESPN or Fox, get better ratings so we can make more money, There you go. So you're contributing to tune in well, and Jerry Jones and most owners know that game.
There were things that we used to find out at DallasCowboys.com that we couldn't report.
Yes, I remember that often.
And it happened to us a lot. And then 2 days later, some national media guy had it and was reporting it. Yeah. Where we had it. Mm-hmm. We saw it with our own eyes, or we uncovered something and can't do that. 2 days later, Jay Glazer's talking about it on Fox.
How about this text from the 302? Guys, next year they play the AFC West. 5-12 is the top out. I mean, Denver's going to be tough to score on, but you could beat Denver and Oakland.
They could beat
Vegas.
They stink against Denver. The Cowboys' history against the Broncos is horrendous. We haven't beat them in a long time.
This team could be worse. It could be worse than what they went through this year.
I think their 17th game is the Jets, though, isn't it? So that's like at least 6-11.
And the Chargers are a beatable team, but it absolutely could be worse. I mean, the talent.
Think about the players that potentially could. Jeff Kavanaugh and I did a mock. Well, he did a mock draft, and he was walking me through it. And he kept trading back in the thing just to see how it would go.
Yeah.
He didn't have enough picks to get everything that was needed for the holes. He couldn't all the picks he had, he couldn't get to a wide receiver.
Even with trading down a bunch of times and getting more picks.
He traded back twice in the first round and couldn't get all the picks.
It's impossible. They can't fill all of their needs without being players in free agency, and that's not even...
That's the key right there. Right. And we all know that traditionally this team doesn't play in free agency.
And that's can they even afford to keep their own this year, right? I mean, last year we saw everybody that left. This year you got Chauncey Golston, you got Osa Digizua, you got Jordan Lewis. The list goes on about Brandon Cooks. You need to get a receiver. You might need a starting defensive end. You probably need a starting defensive tackle. Hell, maybe
a nickel corner.
Right, another corner.
Yeah.